Hi, I'm Joy McKnight. I'm Transaction Banking and Payments Editor at Treasury Payments, and we're here at the International Chamber of Commerce UK's Sustainability Conference in London. And I'm very happy to have with me Sandrine Markham, who's Global Lead for Sustainable Finance Solutions at Finastra. Sandrine, thanks so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Great pleasure to join you.
Excellent. So I'm just going to launch right in about technology. What is the role of technology in sustainability and also sustainable finance?
Technology is quintessential. I would say it's part of the foundation when it comes to sustainability, but also sustainable finance, even more so. It's all about collaboration when we talk about sustainability. We talk about the private market, the public market, the academia. And what basically is the glue, so to speak, will be the technology that will enable you, obviously, not only to communicate, but also when it comes to quantifying and measuring, which is quintessential when it comes to sustainable finance and sustainability as a whole. Later on, when I'm going to touch on the impact, basically, of AI onto the carbon market, for example, and how it helps. It's to give concrete example because for sustainability or even sustainable finance, that's where you usually lose the audience. We think, okay, it's a lot of jargon. I don't really understand and see the impact. And so it's the example I always use basically is when we talk about wine and when you talk about champagne, being French, obviously, that falls into the equation, so to speak. So a lot of people are surprised when I explain that the Champagne area, as most know, is in northern of France. But due to climate change, most of the champagne houses now have vineyard within the south of the UK to produce, obviously, sparkling wine, we'll call it, not champagne, it's in the UK. But that's demonstrating the climate change in itself and the immediate impact now. We're speaking about it now. Where the technology will help is you will have, for example, satellites that will be basically getting pictures of the vineyard. And also you will have what we call IoT, without going into too much details, that will be into the soil and looking when it's time for basically the vendange to pick up, relating to you the key data of the quality of the soil based on the weather. Okay. And you will be able to quantify and qualify, and the data will be sent. And that's where the AI comes in. The AI will be analyzing all the data, but will be also picking up anomaly. From that standpoint, to give you one of this example. But the key thing when we relate it to sustainable finance is, if we carry on the champagne example, when a champagne house, for example, a producer, a corporate needs to borrow basically, and they want to have a sustainable impact, they will do what we call a sustainable link loan or sustainable link bond. Okay. And they will have KPI that will basically be linked to the performance of their loan. And that's how that will be measured. That's where the basically technology comes in. And you have, and that's what we have right now at Finastra, for example. It's where all the KPI of the loan are calculated and linked directly to the performance of the loan, which means to go back to collaboration without going into too much details either, is basically your lender, your investors, and your borrower wants to make sure they have all a positive, sustainable impact that they can basically touch, make it palpable. That's concrete. So the easy option so far has been all about sustainable link loan and sustainable link bonds. And it's always been more so about the E of ESG, about the environment, a bit less about the S and the social. And this is where we can link it to not only technology, but a sustainable impact.
So it's very interesting. I love your example. But then I think something that's a lot of people are talking about now is really then how do you link carbon credit, let's say, with something like gender, which is a social aspect that you touched on?
That's a very good question. And that's where technology comes in as well. There is, that was a very good example that was given to me yesterday, actually, in a conversation with the lady who runs WOCN, WOCN, excuse me for the pronunciation, but basically they worked on a project where you have salt farms that are basically in India, that are basically, that's woman who works within this salt farm, and they used to use diesel, basically, pump. And talk about collaboration. The government, so the private and the public, they were then given, all these women, solar pump. So which means you're removing your diesel, which means you're minimizing your GHG emission. So tick carbon credit there for the voluntary carbon credit market. Tick. Now the big tick as well is for this woman, that project, the key leading point of the project was not actually the minimizing the emission. It was actually the SDG 5.5, but the S of ESG, about gender. So they linked this woman basically, and thanks to using this solar pump, they were then increasing their revenue, okay, their financial state, but they also were provided with training. So that's where the interest was for basically investors and for lenders even so, to see there is a direct impact, and that's qualified and quantified and verified. And this is where technology comes in with all the AI, without going again into much details, but it's linking it all, and again, collaboration as well.
Excellent. Those are great examples, Sandrine. Thank you so much for your insights.
You're welcome.